Hello guys, in this video we will talk about the negotiations, Witkoff's visit to St. Petersburg and Aeroflot sanctions, so I feel we need to start it with something very sobering. Imagine just for a second that you are flying on a plane and Donald Trump is your main pilot. How do you feel? I would be terrified. You know, I'm not a huge fan of flying and I always drink on board. So perhaps I would be totally drunk during all that flight. Russia knows that Trump is very unpredictable, chaotic, loves betraying his friends and glorifying very weird people. So they use this time to manipulate the White House. And right now, Lavrov and other Kremlin-speaking heads keep repeating they want sanctions to be lifted, and number one company is Aeroflot. All because it is on the brink of the collapse. And it looks very pathetic that since the start of these negotiations, so-called negotiations, the size and number of Russian attacks on Ukraine grew tremendously. But at the same time, all that this negotiation process is focused on, sanctions, revenues for Russia, making deals, and so on. If Trump believes that tariffs 145% on China is good for the global economy, he can actually believe that lifting sanctions from a war criminal country is a good deal too. We don't have to let it happen, and let's discuss how this cumulative effect of sanctions actually led to the collapse of Aeroflot. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia, actually the only working peace plan, subscribe. We discuss all of that on the channel as the Ukrainian armed forces keep implementing this plan in real life. Russia wants all the sanctions to be lifted. Despite their propagandists keep repeating, sanctions do not change anything. In reality, there are thousands of Russian companies on the brink of the collapse. Some of them can disappear unnoticed, but others are huge, and their bankruptcy is a serious destruction within the Russian Federation. For example, Aeroflot, the one that provides various flights and the one that has lost a lot of aircraft since the start of the full-scale invasion. Aeroflot had like 1,000 more aircraft at the beginning of this war, but they always need maintenance. And approximately in 2023, a crazy phenomenon happened inside the Russian Federation that also received a very typical for the Russian mindset term to describe it: aircraft cannibalism. Can you guess what that is? When you cannot buy the needed details for your aircraft, you cannot send it on this technical repairs or something that you need abroad, all because of sanctions, and you start choosing this worse aircraft and taking all the details you can out of them, and with the help of this old details from an old bad aircraft, try and repair more other bad aircraft. So that's how they survived during these years, and that is why they keep repeating Aeroflot sanctions must be lifted. And at the same time, they keep bombing Ukrainian playgrounds. You know, this is hypocrisy. This is awful to watch. And of course, I feel worried because Trump seems to be a person that can be easily manipulated just with a couple of compliments. That is sad. Russian statistic demonstrates that in 2024, they had like 208 emergency problems with aircraft, which is 30% more than the previous year. And that is the result of these cumulative sanctions and problems with the maintenance of the Russian aircraft. Subscribe to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine and to see the Kremlin plans crash. It's a beautiful play of word, can be actually. For example, just in January 2025, this year, during 1 month, they had 7 emergency landings because of problems on their aircraft. And this is also very Russian. You literally do not have normal aircraft anymore. You cannot repair them, but the price of tickets keeps growing because the number of planes keeps dropping. So Russians are that non-caring about human life, even if it's their own, that they actually fly this aircraft. And that is why on every meeting, Lavrov keeps repeating they need sanctions from Aeroflot lifted. And Trump considers this as an option. Witkoff, his representative on these negotiations, is not a diplomat. He did not have any experience of talking with, KGB, FSB agents who know how to trick even smart people. And yes, I mean this kind of irony here. So this will be very easy for them to describe everything as a perfect deal and to lift sanctions from Russia in the context of this growing attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure, which is a war crime, a sin, and definitely a very wrong precedent for the future generations and for those people who care about the future of Ukraine, the future of the United States, the future of this world. And let me know in the comments below, do you think Trump will lift this Aeroflot sanctions and describe it as a great deal? Just before the start of his term, I knew things can be problematic, but they are so dynamic. And somehow Trump is very sensitive to, the way people describe him, the way people address him, but he does not notice this very open, very direct humiliation that comes from the White House. Ukraine, the country attacked, Ukraine that has all the rights, moral, spiritual, legal, to defend its motherland, its own territories, agreed on a ceasefire. After all the Russian violence and brutality, and Russia keeps putting new demands while destroying Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. And Trump is waiting. Witkoff is traveling for the 3rd time in Russia, this time to St. Petersburg, to talk about what? About what sanctions Russia want to be lifted first? We see all that, not just people in Ukraine, but people in the United States, people in the European Union, in Canada, in Australia, in Africa, in South America. And trust me, even if some people are weak, some people are frightened, they still remember how justice looks. And at a certain moment of time, this cumulative effect of wrong, stupid things done will backfire. And I know that Russia will be defeated. And I know that Trump will not go down in history of the United States as the greatest president. And, he often speaks about this 3rd term. I don't know how realistic that is with his authoritarian attitudes. He may want that definitely, even if that's illegal. But I believe he should concentrate on finishing this 2nd term. Anyway, let me know what are the other topics you would like me to discuss on the channel, and remember to subscribe to my new channel where I share weekly videos about what is life in times of a big war, and the next one is coming soon, and we will talk about food prices, food shortages, and food in general in Ukraine. So subscribe and wait for that video. Join me on X, Threads, Blue Sky, Discord, and Instagram. Surprisingly, Instagram community is growing and I share more of my everyday life there, including this crazy snow. It seems like Ukrainian April identifies itself as January, and I don't have a cold but an allergy on snow in April. They promise it will be better in Sunday, Monday. I'm waiting for that. I'm praying for that. Thank you for buying me coffees and teas, for becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. Check out our merch shop. There are lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. and a special Easter and Spring edition. Really great and meaningful presents. And most importantly, thank you for your deep understanding, for your friendship, and for your continued support. Slava Ukraini!